Alright folks, welcome to this exciting video where you once again join me in the landscape of Scotland, but today we've come to look at something a little bit different and something that we've never seen before on the channel, because today we've come to the town of Kirriemuir, which is a town which is quite special to me because this is where I grew up. I went to school in Kirriemuir and spent most of my years hanging out around the area of Kirriemuir. So I thought in today's video it would be cool to come and look at a little bit of history here from back in the day. A bit of dark history, and it's all about the witches, because the interesting thing, most places back in the day they used to hang witches or burn witches because at a certain time they used to think that people within society were a witch, so they would go and get them and then bring them up to an area like this here, which is Loch Mill in Kirriemuir. And this area was where they used to hang the witches. I believe they used to sometimes hang them, sometimes they would burn them, and in other cases they would like drown them. And their thinking back then was like, if they survived, it proved that they were a witch. But of course, they always died, because obviously witches and stuff's not real. But back then it was to do with the strong religion and stuff in society, and it was a way of keeping order. If anybody had a strong different opinion about something, they were classed as a witch. And it's amazing to think bits of land like this, that's actually where that occurred. But there's also another interesting little bit down here. This is like the top of the den of Kirriemuir, and the area is called Loch Mill because there's actually, the old white building here at one time was a mill. And the witch history from this area dates back to ancient times, even before that. Wow, they've actually got a railing here. When I used to live in Kirriemuir, these wee bridges didn't have railings. You can see the wear on that stone bridge. Back from the day probably when the old miller would have been coming along here going to work. This is pure paradise down here, folks. When I used to live in Kirrie, I used to often walk this direction when I was going from my house down to see my mates. Most days of the week as well. When I started working, I used to travel this route when I was going to work. I used to come fleeing down here on my BMX. But a cool little historical item that's down here, and one thing I wanted to come and look at in this video in particular, it's what we used to call the Witch's Fountain, or some people would call it the Witch's Well. But it's actually an old stone fountain here that comes out of the cliff side, and I believe it used to be fresh water which flowed out of it for people to get a drink or whatever. The reason it gets called the Witch's Fountain is obviously because of its close proximity to where the witches used to get hung. It's mad here, folks, because literally it's like a bedrock seam here we're walking down through, and over the years the Gary Burn has obviously chewed and carved its way down through here. I believe the Gary Burn also there would have been like powering the mill, the former mill there, which is actually now a house. No way, this old bridge as well, folks. It's so long since I've been down here. It's only 3 degrees Celsius today and it's absolutely freezing. No way, look, this path here has literally fallen away. That used to be a path which led up there, the middle path we would have called that. No way, this has all been changed completely. Look at this, folks, this is the waterfall. Wow, because I've not been here for years, it's so cool to come back and just remember the times I used to spend in Kirriemuir. Some of the things we used to always hang about in the den area when you're young and you have a park like this in the town. It's just ace. Look at this ancient fountain, folks. This is why I wanted to come down here. Even though they've improved and rebuilt around the top of it, you can actually see here the old stone construction. And look, the water's still actually flowing. And look at this. This used to be where there was like a little ladle, that like a spoon that was hooked on there, and you could fill it with water and get a drink. And then look, once it goes into there, it's piped across and then it flows back into the Gary Burn. But yeah, when we were young, like, we used to walk up past here. Sometimes it was like dark, and you can just imagine how eerie this was. The old witch's fountain here. But all this has been recently landscaped. I think there was steps up behind it before, but I think all these new slabs and stuff, it's obviously been renovated and stuff, most likely for safety. It's crazy too, that path is totally like fallen down. It's amazing how landscapes change over the years. Anyway folks, let's head on a little bit further, see what other interesting artefacts of history is down here. So now we've come further down the path into the Kirrie Den. You can really see how it opens up into a park environment. An interesting thing with this area further down in the Den though, back in the Victorian era, in the 1800s, they used to dam the Garry Burn and send the water down in here in the winter months, and it used to freeze, and all the local community used to come down here ice skating, and this was basically the Kirriemuir ice skating rink. Every winter it was a tradition, so it shows that it used to get cold every winter, like that cold that it would freeze over solid. Another crazy thing, this used to be called the Butterfly Hill when I stayed in Kirrie, because there used to be nice cut grass up there, and they had tulips and crocuses planted to look like a butterfly when they were coming out, so we always just called that the Butterfly Hill. Wow, this is mad to see. Check this out, the old bandstand. Once a year they still have an event called Live in the Den, where all the local bands come down here and play their music, play covers of different tunes, and it's another community thing as well. This place is just normally packed. I remember years ago people used to be sitting right up to the top of that hill like a grandstand. When I used to hang about Kirrie as well growing up, there used to be benches and places like this, and we used to always come down here and sit. This used to be somewhere we would come and play football, and the bandstand here was the goal. It's just mad to think of the summers we used to spend, the times we had, folks. It's cool to bring this on a video to the world and show people a little Scottish town, and then the crazy like dark history with like the witches all those years ago, and then the history in the 1800s with this being a skating rink, and then my own history here of all the times we used to hang about down the Den. Sometimes it was just like a meeting place. We'd always be like, oh, I'll get you down the Den. Wow, it's been cool to come back. I might head on a different route and go up here. So that middle path's been closed off now, and we can see why from the lower erosion. And that's how landscapes like this were formed over thousands of years, gradually eroding and bits falling down like that. It's always mad coming back to somewhere that you spent a lot of time when you were young, and when you see how much things change and how the landscape changes, it just blows your mind off. And like, but this has been an amazing little adventure, and I'll probably do more adventures soon, kind of looking into the history of little areas of Kirriemuir and forgotten histories of the Angus area here. Anyway, I'm going to end this one here. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll be back very soon with the next one.